so frustrated at what I saw as, and not deliberately, but just because of maybe a lack of proper infrastructure development, Sligo poaching Leitrim attractions like the Parks Castle coming out of Sligo. The bus will come out of Sligo, will turn around at Parks Castle, go back, and the bus would come up Glencar. The coaches I'm talking about would come up Glencar. They wouldn't probably go into Manorhamilton and would go back out again. Weren't spending any money. There was no economic advantage to County Leitrim or to North Leitrim from that. Maybe that's improved a bit, has it, Jerry? Or is it still a bugbear? Still a bugbear?
It is, but I think one of our key challenges are to get the people from Glencar Waterfall visiting the rest of North Leitrim and back down into South Leitrim.
Yeah, no, I agree.
That is a challenge.
And therefore, development of road infrastructure is vitally important.
Yeah, it is, yes. Now,
speaking of infrastructure, and I suppose forging those links as well is something that Phelim Gurn has been very proactive on over the lifespan of the last municipal district, is connecting with Ireland International Airport in Knock and trying to make sure that there can be more tourist figures moved from Knock directly into Leitrim. He feels that they're not benefiting enough from that.
But Sean, if you don't have the developed road infrastructure,
it's difficult to get them in.
Yes, and but the potential for Knock is still there and still is underdeveloped, and I think all of the county councils on the Western Seaboard should be advocating for a greater development at Knock Airport.
Mm-hmm. More transatlantic flights.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You know
Is there much reach out, Jerry, because Manorhamilton being where it's located and because of its history, is there much interface between our neighbours in Fermanagh in terms of many of the economic issues we're talking about and tourism and various other common interests?
And maybe there isn't enough. Now, one of the things that I'm working on at the moment is the Quaylor Trail, which is the Spanish Armada, and the Quaylor, who was part of that, came into North Leitrim. Yeah, Streeja. And he visited Dromahare, Manorhamilton, and McClancy's Castle at Kinlaw, and that's a natural loop of the Wild Atlantic Way, and that's one of the.
And indeed, you're very welcome back here for the benefit of our listeners on Ocean FM to the Bush Hotel in Carrick-on-Shannon. We're still at this stage awaiting any developments as regards the first count. We were told not that terribly long ago that we might be looking at maybe 10 to 15 minutes, but unfortunately it hasn't materialized as of that, and sources close to the podium tell me not a whole sign of movement there. But we will, for the time being, and again for the benefit of our FM listeners, we'll reflect on some of the developments of the day in the Manorhamilton Municipal District. Somebody well known to the listeners of Ocean FM, Jerry Graham, manager of the B Park Community Centre in Manorhamilton, has joined our discussion panel at this moment in time. And I suppose, Jerry, in many ways, we have looked at the figures in Manorhamilton. No change in the status quo there. The 6 outgoing councillors are going to be returned. Give me your views on that, I suppose, from a Manorhamilton perspective, from a business perspective. There's experience going back in there. Some people would say the change is good, but I suppose that the councillors, maybe in fairness, have got the mandate to be returned.
Yes, they did. And I suppose I have worked with all of them over the last 5 years, and I have found them to be very, very helpful to me and very proactive in what they've been doing. So from my perspective, I'll be quite happy to continue engaging with them and driving Manorhamilton and North Leitrim forward.
Yeah, we were just saying, because we were online, but for the benefit of our FM listeners, I was asking Jerry about going forward and about the need to maybe ensure that there is more economic activity around Manorhamilton that would keep the young people. I mean, on a sporting level, Manorhamilton is leading the charge. I mean, they have wonderful sporting success, which obviously would indicate that there's a large body of young people that are going forward into third level education. Manorhamilton, as Jerry has pointed out earlier, is, as I always believed it to be, economically sustainable. He made a point about 1,100 people employed in a 1,200 town, which is wonderful. And it gives a lie to those suggesting that some Leitrim towns are dying. I think that's a very vibrant community and a great community in that sense. So I was just asking him about the priorities going forward, and he said more jobs.
Yes, absolutely, yeah. And I'd love to see a development plan for the 3 border villages of Kiltyclogher, Rossiniver and Glenfarne. I think they need to be lifted in just in parallel with what we are trying to do in Manorhamilton. So it's important, and that's where the work in the municipal district should come into focus. That we can get throw in money to help those particular communities, because they have huge challenges, and they're even going to get more difficult with Brexit.
One criticism of local government in the past, and especially various councils and municipal districts, is that there wouldn't be enough of business expertise, Jerry, on it, maybe heretofore. But again, the likes of Phelim Gurn, who's a businessman himself in the town of Manorhamilton, when you have people there who are familiar with what's happening and I suppose the challenges that's there for business on a regular basis, that's always good to have that experience there.
It is, yes, and I suppose the difficulty for anybody in business is that they're so preoccupied with staying in business and sustaining the business and growing it, and the work of a county councillor takes up so much time. It's such a time-consuming job that that they shy away from actually putting their name forward for election. That's, I would say, one of the downsides of trying to attract that type of character into the election fray.
Pascal, any developments from the main hall?
Did I tell you there was no drama? There is a bit of drama.
Go on, fill us in.
I understand that the tally is not correct in the Ballinamore electoral area. And as a result, Keelan Ellis is 15 votes short of the quota, not in excess of the quota, which means that it turns everything on its head. It means that the 400 plus surplus of Paddy O'Rourke, if going according to trends, he will get the bulk of that transfer as the party colleague, and that gives him a surplus, which will then have to be distributed, and we're then looking at third preferences and possibly fourth preferences. So that is as dramatic as you can get. I mean, whatever has happened, the tallies looked like they were fine, but look, this isn't any surprise, John. This happens. This happens all the time, and I did say earlier on that there would be a change in the tally figures and the official result when it's declared. As to what the extent of it would be, I had no idea. Now I know. There's one example. He's going to be 15, and that has come, by the way, from Keelan's brother John.
Okay, so that's significant for him. He'd be looking now at the Paddy O'Rourke.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Transfers.
They're currently counting Sean Wynn's votes. That's my understanding.
Okay.
And they're very close to a declaration.
So the process of elimination will be starting there, and the transfer of those votes as well.
Well, the first thing that will happen is that in the three electoral areas, they will announce the first count results as to what each candidate has received, the official figure as distinct from the tally figure, which generally is pretty accurate, but here's an example of it not, of being slightly skewed. And the second thing will then happen is that on the basis of that, I presume that Mary Quinn will announce simultaneously what's going to happen on the second count in each of the electoral areas, and will then act accordingly. And as they take it in alphabetical order, I'm assuming that when she announces what the second count is to be in Ballinamore, they will proceed with the distribution of Paddy O'Rourke's surplus. There won't be any eliminations.
Okay, but and by the way, once again, just to remind listeners to the FM frequency that if you want to stay with us here, you can do so by logging on to the Ocean FM website. You can follow us on YouTube, and of course we will have the Manorhamilton counts live on the Ocean FM Facebook page as well. So some drama coming in there at last from the Ballinamore area.
That's arisen people out of their slumbers down in Manorhamilton.
Yes.
So it mightn't be affecting Manorhamilton, but it's a bit of drama.
Well, I don't.
Shakespeare couldn't have created it.
Exactly it, but I don't think there's obviously going to be no real effect there from a Manorhamilton perspective. We were just talking before Pascal rejoined us there, I suppose, about some of the economic challenges and the Manor 2 summit which took place recently.
Yes.
I presume the big question for an awful lot of towns, Jerry, around the border region is going to be how Brexit proof are border towns. Manorhamilton again would fall into that particular category.
It would, yes, and I suppose I don't know how well prepared those businesses are. It's really the people who are involved in export that's where the real challenge will lie. Farming is very critical to North Leitrim and to Manorhamilton, but it's not. Most people are part time in that profession now, so it's very difficult to give a definitive answer to you on how Brexit is going to manifest itself in a border area like North Leitrim.
Undoubtedly for North Leitrim, and Pascal has touched on it here earlier on as well. the whole challenge of taking as much as possible potential out of the tourism markets. That is definitely one of the big challenges that is going to be facing not alone the municipal district, but the council in general going forward. So the raw material is there in many ways, but the infrastructure needs to be added to complement that.
Yes, that's exactly right. The raw material is there. The beauty of the area, the unspoiled nature of the area is there to be explored. It is one of the areas that North Leitrim can grow. It can develop. It's the one area that's obvious. It's the one obvious area. Getting in investment, foreign direct investment, or any other kind of investment is a much more difficult ask. So it's really in that area that.
One of the unsuccessful candidates today, John Joe Dowdigan, speaking earlier on Ocean FM, made the point that a lot of the sitting councillors who were taking re-election were able to claim credit for, a lot of the investment maybe into tourism, maybe some of the money that Michael Ring would have put into the locality. He says a lot of that was going to be coming in anyways, and that was where he was starting at a disadvantage because they couldn't claim to have been involved in heretofore in the distribution of those funds. So again, from watching the election carefully, and it was always going to be difficult for those new candidates to go in there and challenge the establishment. There was a lot of political experience that's going to be going back in there again, representing Manorhamilton in the municipal district going forward.
Yes, there is, and I can appreciate where John Joe is coming from, because money coming through the Leitrim Development and Leader and through the county council is coming through subcommittees that councillors are sitting on, and they can take license with that and say we were part of that that committee that rubber stamped that particular funding.
All right, Pascal, you'll be interested in this just before you go as well. Roscommon have beaten Mayo 212 to 17 points in the Connacht Senior Football Championship semi-final in McHale Park in Castlebar.
Well, does that vindicate Leitrim?
There you go.
I mean, there's the question. Was it that Leitrim weren't that bad, that Roscommon were just that very good?
Absolutely. Well, just to move away from politics, that is an interesting one. So a win for Roscommon against Mayo in the Connacht Senior Football Championship this evening. Just to go back to election matters once again, and to look at it from a Manorhamilton perspective, one of the interesting topics of debate that has been discussed here on a regular basis throughout the day has been the lack of a Fianna Fáil candidate in Manorhamilton. And the longer that a situation like that continues to exist, the more difficult it is going to be maybe for Fianna Fáil to get that vote back in the future. Give me your views on that, Jerry. As somebody, again, who would have been watching this from a little bit of a distance, but at the same time with a considerable amount of interest.
Yeah, but I suppose the reason for that is down to Fianna Fáil organisationally. If there's structures in there, and if that's not there at the moment, and if it's not effective, then that leaves it more difficult for them to have a strong candidate from the town. So that's really, I suppose, I would say to you, that's an internal matter for Fianna Fáil.
Grassroots members and various commands to sort.
Yes.
Okay. The other standout aspect of the Manorhamilton Municipal District has been how the local candidates have performed so well in their own heartlands, on their own doorsteps, on their own backyards. There's been some very impressive performances there. Justin Warnock, for instance, Mary Bohan, just looking at from Fianna Fáil, Sean McDermott. So once again, it seems that all the various candidates there have been able to very much make sure that they're getting a very strong, I suppose, return from their own local heartland.
Yes, and I suppose particularly in local elections, it's absolutely key that you're able to deliver your own parish or your own village or your own town. That's your foundation, and if you have that foundation, then you're well on the way to getting elected.
All right. Okay. Well, look, it's a lot of food for thought. There'll be significant interest, obviously, in what's taking place in Ballinamore, in Carrick and Shannon. But very much we have, I suppose, that fairly good indication of what's going to take place in Manorhamilton, going very much along expected lines. So maybe the electorate happy with the councillors that are there, but undoubtedly so. Big challenges ahead. A lot of work to do in the Manorhamilton district for the 5 years going forward. And how confident are you there now that the right people are going to be in the job to do that?
Well, that's the people have spoken, John. So that that's the way it is. That's democracy for you, and that's how it has out.
Okay, Jerry, thank you so much indeed. Well done on that, and thank you for Thank you indeed for your contribution on the situation there in Manor Hamilton. And of course, we'll have more from the Manor Hamilton district. And indeed, as time goes on, we will hopefully be getting some more information on counts and possible times of counts as well. Now let's see if we can get any more information maybe on what's taking place on the Ballinamore situation. John, okay. Yeah, what we can do is Pádraig McGourty has joined us here once again in studio. So Pádraig, Pascal mentioned it there briefly as regards the inconsistencies on the tally figures from a little bit earlier.
Yeah, I've done a recheck on the sheets that we get back. So as the people entering the data, I just decided when I heard that there was an anomaly to double check our data entry. But from the sheets we got back, that is the tally. So we rely on the individuals who are looking, checking about ballot papers to give us back in the figure. So that figure of Killian Ellis is the tally figure that we have got back from the ground this morning. So obviously there's probably, I suppose there will be errors in the data in terms of where it's a visual process checking the ballot paper and you're looking for the number one. It's a quite quick process, so you have to see on the ballot paper the person is doing the tallying. I've done it myself before. It's quite sharp. You have to be quite quick. So there will be anomalies in the tally. Now, generally, looking back, I had some data from the last tally that was done at the local elections. There was only a plus or minus 2% difference in it. So we'll see when the actual figures come out. I presume that John Ellis is getting his information from someone on the ground that's counting, or they're doing it by the number of ballot papers, that the number of bundles of ballot papers that they can see in the boxes that are being used out in the count centre. So they're making an estimate on it in terms of where his number of votes lie. So we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. When we get the first count, we will get the actual figures, and then we'll be able to comment further on the accuracy of the tally. One thing that Pascal isn't just here at the minute, but we might talk to him about it when he comes back, is going back to the Manor Hamilton Municipal District. Could Fianna Fáil have had the scope for a third candidate there? Because there was over nearly 800 votes between Pat Munday and Philip Rooney the last time. So is there scope there for another? Would Fianna Fáil have been able to run another candidate?
Yeah, it's something I think that came up as a topic of conversation throughout the day so far. I think various people may have been approached by the grassroots members there, but for one reason or another decided that they would not be in a position to go forward. Just on Ballinamore, and again on those changes on the tally figures, is that going to impact on the quota now, Pádraig, as well?
Well, what will impact on the quota? It shouldn't really impact on the quota in terms, because the quota is calculated on the total number of ballot papers. I'd imagine that the anomaly in the tally is probably the missing votes.
My understanding is things. One is that all candidates have been affected by this, and that taking the Ballinamore electoral area, I was talking to a couple of the candidates, votes will be down, and they'll be down by 10 to 12 or maybe 15. In the case of Keelan Ellis is down 30, I think. Well, on the basis of the figure that we have here for him currently, the tally is showing at 950. Now, if what his brother was telling me that he was 15 below the quota, it depends on what the quota is going to be. Which that quota that we're quoting, the quota was 935, so it looks like that quota will be lower.
Right.
But if it's lower, then that should benefit Keelan.
If all candidates are down
low, well, then the quota
will go lower. So.
Lower. The other thing is that they're currently looking at disputed ballots.
Okay.
The spoiled votes, in other words. That's where there's a big gathering of people in the corner in the count centre, and they're going through them. And I saw one bundle being taken away, so I'd say they're very close to the end of that. And the other interesting aspect of the transfers, which of course we're going to be focusing on as the night goes on, is that I was talking with Sean Wynne, and his 190 votes in the Carrick-on-Shannon area, checked them for second and third preferences, and his understanding is that significant number are going to Paddy Farrell. Significant number going to Paddy Farrell, which again changes the dynamic of the transfers in relation to what we've discussed about the possible contest between Tiscookin and Paddy Farrell for a last seat.
And again, interesting to see where Sean Wynne would have picked up a lot of those votes in the Carrick-on-Shannon area. Just looking at the various boxes that would have come in there where Sean would have polled well, and maybe not so much in Carrick and Shannon itself. I'm just looking at some of the figures that he would have from there. 4 from Anna Duff from the past, and Carrick and Shannon 10, 12, 7. So, 29 votes is where well, it would make sense, because just looking at it there, for instance, Leitrim National School, both two, he picked up 29 votes in that particular area. That would be very much Paddy Farrell territory, as indeed would Kiltahart Community Centre, where Sean Wynn picked up 54 votes. So there's quite a lot of merit.
Yes, there is. So that'll be an interesting turnaround in it. But I just wish that we could get close to a declaration, at least on the first count, because it would clear the air to some degree as to where we're going next in relation to that. And there was some suggestion out there that they would declare Banner-Hamilton on the basis that it was straightforward. I don't think they'll do that. I don't think they'll change the format. I think they'll stick to the alphabetical order. BCM, Ballinamore, Carrick, Manor,
and stick to that.
I think so. So I don't know why.
Perhaps a suggestion maybe that they could, just with Manor-Hamilton being so cut and dried, that they might just.
But that's maybe where that rumour has come from.
Okay.
Count centres are full of rumours.
Absolutely.
I told you earlier about the cat running across the stage, and everybody says, "Oh, shh, there's going to be an announcement."
That there was going to be some major development on it. Pádraig was making a point just before you came back to us, and we're very much looking, I suppose, at the Manor-Hamilton Municipal District and the performances, and indeed the stats here that he has to hand on the performances of Mary Bohan and Justin Warnock. That perhaps, and I know Fianna Fáil might have tried to get a third person to run there, that the figures, at least from the suggestions that Pádraig is making here, that there could have been a very much a case if the right candidate was in place, Fianna Fáil could seriously be challenging for 3 seats in the Manor-Hamilton Municipal District.
Well, it was very difficult last time out, and I did say tracking, like Pat Munday, who was an excellent candidate. I mean, he's a postman. He's exceptionally well known, widely liked and admired, was located in the right place just outside of Manor-Hamilton, and yet it didn't work for him. Phelim Gurn, there was a bit of an independent swing in the 2014 election. Fine Gael weren't popular. We didn't benefit from it. Pat didn't benefit from it. Now he came very late. I mean, Fianna Fáil just messed around with that nomination process at the time, and they didn't give him enough time to get out there and to do the business. And I think that there was similar issues surrounding this year. There was suggestion or a rumour that he might run, but he didn't in the end. So you're right. Fianna Fáil need to find the candidates in the Manor-Hamilton area in order to consolidate their vote, or it'll be lost for all time. And the impact that will have on the general election. That's the key.
Yeah, it would obviously have a knock-on effect there on that. But you from the figures that you've looked at, Pádraig, would suggest that, definitely if the right candidate was in place, the numbers there to suggest that they could return 3 candidates.
I suppose I'm going on the basis of the figures from the last election, where there was 2 North Leitrim-based Fianna Fáil, or 2 candidates based in we'll say the Rossinver Manor-Hamilton area with Pat Munday and Philip Rooney, that they had between almost 800 votes between them. So that would suggest that there was enough there to at least leave one candidate in a good race for the last seat in Manor-Hamilton. I'm just taking a quick look here at even somewhere like Ballinamore, where would have been Philip Rooney Heartland the last time. Sean McDermott picked up 56 votes there the last time. I think in this current election he got 81 votes in Ballinamore, so it would suggest that some of those Philip Rooney votes went to Sean McDermott in the absence of a candidate there to take those votes. So I think there was scope there for another candidate possibly in the field from one of the parties, and specifically Fianna Fáil, because they only ran 2, and heretofore they've ran at least 3 in that area.
All right, okay, yeah, definitely food for thought as regards to the number crunching there. It amazes me, Pascal, in many ways, and we've talked about maybe people coming late to the campaigns, and at least the message I'm taking from today, and Blaheen Gallagher admitted it as well, Shana Logan in his interview admitted it, perhaps they could have started earlier. It shows the importance of being organised from the outset, having a clear strategy as regards canvassing, different times to hit different areas, but to give yourself quite the amount of time that's necessary, because it is very time consuming. It can be cumbersome. It can only be done in a certain times in the evening really to be effective when it comes to canvas. And if there's engagement, obviously that will slow you down if you're staying for long periods at various locations that you're calling to. So it shows the importance of being well prepared and having a strategy in place. And I suppose maybe now for some who might be contemplating, maybe even listening at home or watching at home, that if they think this is for them in 5 years' time, the planning starts now.
Party, Bertie Ahern kept continually banging the drum to his TDs that they needed to go out and knock on doors, and they needed to do it every week. And he did it in Drumcondra. He would take a section of Drumcondra and they would descend on the housing estate or on the terraces, and they would knock on doors, and then they would go off and they do the same the following week. And I think that's what Shayla was referring to possibly there, that he perhaps needed to be back out, to be out a bit earlier, and maybe Blahin, because you're first-time candidate and not familiar with the ropes, realised maybe during the campaign I should have been out a wee bit earlier as well.
Yeah, so it just shows the importance, I suppose, of being organised. And the other thing that you've mentioned there too is I suppose that engagement on the doorstep. And famously, who was it? Shane Ross, I think maybe was it on Christmas Eve was out canvassing. Yes. So it just shows that it never stops when it comes to engaging with the electorate.
Well, you hear the old cliche, and although you don't hear it as much as you used to, and because I never really thought it was totally relevant. I think it was people being bitter begrudgers. Shall we never see you from one election to the next? And I could never understand that, because most politicians I knew of all parties and none cultivated their electorate, and they didn't ignore them, and they didn't neglect them. So that sort of, but you don't hear it as much as you used to, because I think it has become much more competitive right across the country. And that it's become effectively, as you were saying, a time-consuming job that's nearly full-time in terms of wanting to get elected. In America, for example, where the House of Representatives has an election every 2 years, most of the congressmen and women spend the first year after they're elected raising money for the next campaign. Yeah. So they are in perpetual campaign mode. Although there is a difference in the way that it's structured in the US, in that there are many what are called safe seats, and the Republicans would hold the seat and the Democrats wouldn't contest, or equally the Democrats hold the seat and the Republicans. But the last election, the one that showed the big change in the House complexion, was the Democrats.
The Ballinamore adjudication of spoiled votes in 15 minutes in that far corner on my left, on your right. Thank you.
Okay, the announcement that you've just heard there in the background from Mary Quinn, the returning officer, in 15 minutes of just looking at some of the spoiled votes in the Ballinamore municipal district. So that's what they're going to be doing in 15 minutes. Ballinamore electoral area. Okay. They're going to be having a look at that, and just as regards to the spoiled votes.
Did she give a time there? I didn't hear that announcement.
About 15 minutes that she's going to be looking at that as well. So that seems to be the format, seems to be the way that they're going to be progressing onto it. But again, obviously those tally figures and the inaccurate tally figures that were coming from the earlier in the day will be making an impact in the Ballinamore Municipal District. Again, for the people who would be watching and listening to our broadcast here.
Well, we might need to find out, John, how many spoiled votes there are, because those spoiled votes wouldn't have been they could have formed part of the tally, but it'll be interesting to see how many there are, because they will have an effect.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see if we can find out.
On those from the Ballinamore Municipal District.
I suggest we're still quite a bit away from a declaration of a count.
Absolutely, and at this stage now we're approaching 9 o'clock. Could one be suggesting a second day return visit to Carrick-on-Shannon, gentlemen?
Well, I think once the count declarations come in, I think they'll move.
You'll still be optimistic it can be done tonight.
Yeah, because there isn't a huge volume of votes.
No.
I mean, what's the breakdown in terms of the total number of totality of votes in each electoral area?
There was 5,580 in Manor Hamilton. In Carrick-on-Shannon, there was 5,612. And in Ballinamore, there was 6,530.
So there isn't a huge number, relatively speaking, a huge number of votes that have to be counted. And remember, they're doing it in a tripartite basis. They're doing it across the three areas. So it's not like they're accumulating 15,000 votes and the one set of counters is counting the 15,000. They're doing it in three separate sections. They have enough resources out there to do that. So I would suggest that once they start rocking and rolling, that we should be getting counts coming in pretty fast. And remember that the figures, in terms of the eliminations, the figures are very small, aren't they? Correct. The figures for the eliminations forget about the surplus for a moment, but the actual eliminations, we're talking about a couple of hundred at a time.
If you take Ballinamore, the first thing they will do is they'll distribute Paddy O'Rourke surplus,
Yes,
whatever
that's
that may
going to be.
because
That'll be a bit of a.
they could still put, assuming or
Ladies and gentlemen,
if you take the assumption that
something I'm sure you're all waiting for, results of the referendum on the 38th Amendment of the Constitution, Dissolution of Marriage Bill 2016 in County Leitrim. The total electors, 26,340. The total poll, 17,105. Valid ballot papers, 724. Total valid poll, 16,381. Votes cast in favour, 12,517. Votes cast against, 3,864. Thank you very much.
That is the divorce referendum.
Now you wonder whether it.
Yeah, could well be. So what we could do. Shane Ellis has just joined us here as well. Again, thank you very much indeed, Shane, for dropping into our studio. We'll go back to those referendum votes, but just for 16,381, for 12,517 against 3,864. That's something that we can discuss at a later stage. Shane, thank you indeed for joining us here in our outside broadcast studio in the Bush Hotel. Obviously, we are looking at it from the three municipal districts, but just something that will obviously be very much affecting the Ellis camp as well here is the change in the tally figures from the Ballinamore area. Not completely correct, so there's some discussion about that at the moment.
Yeah, there's just a little bit of a poll on that, but I don't think it's something that's going to influence the vote going forward. It's a little bit of a discrepancy, but I think going forward we'll have to see what's going to happen, because people would be turning around and seeing Keelan and Paddy as being elected on the first count. There's a transfer vote there that is going to have to be transferred, as we know, and it's going to go. Keelan will get the transfer off it, as we know that. Yeah, but that is going to blow the field well open.
Yeah, to talk to me about that, because the first part of that is very, very clear. Obviously, Paddy O'Rourke coming in with a very impressive vote, albeit there was a discrepancy there in the tally figures regarding Keelan. But he will obviously take those transfers from Paddy, and that should see him safe as well.
Yeah, that should see Keelan safe, all right. But we just don't know where the discrepancy is going to go after that, and the transfer of votes after that is going to be a difficult situation for anyone to turn around and say, because this is something that we didn't realise that was going to happen about 4 or 5 hours ago. Keelan is definitely safe, and it's just going to be something that we have to realise and turn around that there's going to be a transfer of votes.
All right, okay, so that will become a little bit clearer as the day progresses. Let's maybe look at it from a Fianna Fáil perspective, and no need to tell our viewers and our listeners you will be a general election candidate for Fianna Fáil in the next general election. And I suppose we can look at the various municipal districts there as regards Fianna Fáil. We've already touched on Ballinamore, 2 candidates running there in Keelan and Paddy O'Rourke, and both performing very well. On the Manorhamilton Municipal District, you must be happy with how the 2 sitting councillors there for Fianna Fáil, the 2 candidates in the field, Mary Bohan on one side of the constituency, and of course Justin Warnock on the other, again very much consolidating their vote, very much getting a huge return in their local areas, and very much will be returned with a strong mandate for the next sitting of the Manorhamilton Municipal District.
We're delighted. There's no point in saying any different. We have 2 excellent candidates, and we put forward 2 excellent candidates in Mary Bohan and Justin Warnock, and we're very pleased with the result that we have got from our 2 candidates, and we look forward to moving forward with our candidates. We're only building our vote here. People thought we were dead and buried come back the elections gone by, but we have not been dead and buried. Our county councillors have worked very hard in their communities. Mary Bohan and Justin Warnock are 2 brilliant county councillors, and I look forward to working with them going forward, for the simple reason that they work for the communities. Our county councillors are out on the ground and they work for the communities. And with their help, they will bring me forward.
If we can put it to you, Shane Ellis, on the basis of what we have seen today in Ballymore and in Manorhamilton, where we're talking about, and we'll go to Carrick-on-Shannon in just a few moments' time, I take it you're taking a lot of encouragement, more energy from today, from the performance of the county councillors, that it is going to stand to you come the general election for the Sligo, Leitrim, North Roscommon, part of Donegal, for all that constituency.
Of course it is. When you have county councillors and when we are taking percentages of votes here from 30% plus into the 40s in local elections, I know it's a personal vote, an awful lot of local election votes are. But when you see Fianna Fáil running at between 30s and 40%, you have to be encouraged. You have to be encouraged because our people on the ground work for the people on the ground. And our people on the ground in Fianna Fáil work for the people that they go out and meet every day. And they go out and do their best for them. And our county councillors are our foot soldiers on the ground.
All right.
Our county councillors, John, do what needs to be done. A lot of them talk about what needs to be done, but our county councillors do what needs to be done.
In other words, action speaks louder than words.
Yes.
Just to confirm again, for the benefit of those who have joined us on the FM frequency, the referendum result, total votes in Leitrim,